Hare Krishna devotees, thank you for joining the BhagavatSanga weekly program. So currently devotees are presenting from chapter 87 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the title of the chapter is the prayers of the Personified Vedas. Today we have wonderful devotees, Kannan Prabhu and Sridevi mataji, presenting from this chapter. So Hare Krishna Prabhu and Mataji.
Hare Krishna mataji. Hare Krishna devotees.
Hare Krishna devotees. I'll share my mission, Prabhu.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna everyone. We would like to thank Sati Sara Prabhu, Jai Subhatra Mataji and Veena Mataji for giving us this wonderful opportunity. So please forgive us if we make any mistakes. So today we are going to talk about the prayers of the Personified Vedas from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 87, verse 26. So I'm going to recite the sloka now. Sattiva manastrivritvayi vibatya sattam Sattavi mruchantya sesham idamatmatayatma vitaha nahi vikritim tyajanti kanakasya tatatmataya swakritim anupravishtam idamatmataya vasitam. Translation. The three modes of material nature comprise everything in this world, from the simplest phenomena to the complex human body. Although these phenomena appear real, they are only a false reflection of the spiritual reality, being a superimposition of the mind upon you. Still, those who know the Supreme Self consider the entire material creation to be real in as much as it is non-different from the self. Just as things made of gold are indeed not to be rejected, since their substance is actual gold. So this world is undoubtedly non-different from the Lord who created it and then entered within it. So we are going to offer our prayer to our Guru. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna devotees. So this verse clearly talk about what is real, that is Sat, and what is unreal, that is Asat, what is temporary and what is eternal. So these four factors described in this verse. So it means how Krishna conscious people and Vaishnava look at these four terms. So how we look at Sat, Asat, temporary and eternal from our perspective, and how impersonalists look, like what is real, what is unreal, like what is temporary and eternal from their point of view, like from their perspective. So before we look into this, we will see some basic details of how this material world created and the elements of material world. So the reason why we are touching this is, these are the things that comes under four categories, like whether material world is real or unreal. So it will help us to understand about Sat and Asat concept. So we all know that this material universe came from Mahavishnu's body, that is Karanodakshayi Vishnu. But do we know how these material elements placed in this material world? So we all know that there are 24 material elements or substances of the material world. But how they came into this material world, so that's what we are going to see now. So we are not going to see all the elements in detail, but we are just going to see what those elements are. So the first one is like 5 basic elements. We all know that earth, water, and fire, air, and ether. And we always say that the 3 subtle elements, but actually there are 4 subtle elements. That is mind, intelligence, false ego, and 3 modes of material nature come under these subtle elements. So which are mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance. And then 5 working senses. Sense element is like voice, legs, hands, anus, and genitals. 5 knowledge gathering sense are like eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and feelings. 5 objects of the senses like form, sound, smell, taste, and touch. So now we know there are 24 material elements, and these material elements exist in material world. So let's see where these material elements were initially and how they came into this material universe. So whether it came from Mahavishnu body or Krishna directly put this in the material elements, put these material elements. So all these 24 elements initially were in lump sum. So they all were clubbed together, like all were in like that stage we call that Pradhan stage all together. So Pradhan stage means in unmanifested form. So it is not manifested yet. So let's assume that all these elements are in a bag, like in mixed form. So when it is in the mixed form, we cannot differentiate one element from another element. So in the Pradhan stage, but all these elements are there in the bag together. So it is like an initial stage of unborn baby, like 2 or 3 months old baby in the womb. So the unborn baby has all organs, all parts, but it is not completely developed. So we cannot see them clearly. So when Mahavishnu glances, or he doesn't even have to glance, just to think about this Pradhan, that unmanifested form, then the agitation happens inside the Pradhan. So why agitation happens? That is because when Mahavishnu glances, he is injecting time, that is Kala, into this Pradhan. So this Kala that is time has some qualities, that is creating actions and reactions. So that is the beauty of the time. So the major factor for this time is it has destroying qualities as well, like creating and destroying qualities as well. So we turn from young age to old age. That is just because the time it degrades and destroys. So when Mahavishnu injects the time into Pradhan stage, the first thing that produces is the 3 modes of material nature. So first mode of goodness will come, and then mode of passion will come, and then mode of ignorance will come. So now these 3 modes interact with other material elements. So when it interacts with other material elements, the reaction happens. So all these material elements come to manifest stage. When it reacts, all it comes to the manifested stage. So, I mean, you cannot differentiate all the elements separately. We can differentiate all these elements separately. So, manifested form of all material elements, we call that Prakriti. So, once again, I'm repeating, unmanifested form of material elements, we call them Pradhan. And manifested form, we call Prakriti. So in the unmanifested form, we cannot differentiate which one is water and which one is earth. So because all are mixed together in the mixed form. So in the manifested form, we can clearly differentiate. So that is what in Srimad Bhagavatam it is mentioned in 3.26.10. It clearly says, the unmanifested eternal combination of the 3 modes is a cause of the manifest state, and it is called Pradhan. It is called Prakriti when in the manifested stage of existence. So the material world formed with this material element, and also it has Jiva, which came from Mahavishnu's body. So one of these, once these elements came into universe, the first living entity is created. That is Brahma, created by Karanodakshayi Vishnu. And then Brahma created all other living entities. So with that backdrop, Kannan will continue our verse 10.87.26. Thank you.
Hare Krishna devotees. Sridevi just gave the introduction of how Pradhan and the Prakriti and everything created. And the first living entity is created by Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Brahma, not the Karnadakshaya Vishnu. I just wanted to point it out that. Now we will see this, the actual verse, 10.87.26 in the Personified Vedas. So now we know that, like how the material world and material elements and everything is created. Now we will see what is Asat, what is Sat, according to the Mayavati vision and our vision, like, Vaishnava's vision. So the purport of this verse, the purport of this verse says, in one sense, the visible world is real. That means Sat. While in another sense, it is not. The substance of this universe is solid fact, being the Lord's external energy, but the forms that Maya imposes on this are only temporary. So what does this purport exactly says that? As per Krishna consciousness, the material world is real. The material world is real. It's not false. It's a real. Since it came from the Supreme Lord external energy, it is real. But if you closely look at that, the influence of the Maya on the substance of the material world. What is the substance of the material world? Anything. Even, the jiva, the soul, spiritual soul. So the Maya is going to influence the jiva. That is temporary. That is what? Unreal. That is what? Asat. So the material world is real because it came from Supreme Lord only. It's an external energy. But the Maya is going to influence on this material world. That is unreal. As we discussed earlier, the mind is, initially came from, the Pradhan stage, and then it comes to the Prakriti stage. That mind is the one is going to control the jiva. How mind is controlling the jiva? Because there are the three modes of material nature, that mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance is influencing the mind. So mind is not, the three modes of material nature is not directly controlling the jiva, but it is coming through mind. So the mind is the three modes of material nature is influencing the mind. Then the mind is, according to the mind, the soul acts. So now you need to understand that, the soul is seeing everything through this material mind. Say, for example, if mode of goodness is influencing more on this mind, then the soul is happy. But if mode of passion or mode of ignorance is influencing more on the mind, then the soul is unhappy. So this is how the duality happens. This is exactly how duality happens. So now this is exactly like, three colors, the major colors, RGB, red, green, blue. So, if you, those three colors, if you have those colors, like, if you are wearing that red glass, then you are seeing other elements, you will see all of them are red only. Like that, the three modes of material, three modes, influencing the mind. So whichever the mode is, high, that's what the soul is, experiencing. But remember that the soul is spiritual soul. It is, but here in the material world, the soul is literally covered by this mind. So whatever the duality we face, it is all because of influence of the three modes of the material nature on the mind. In Bhagavad-Gita 14.5, it clearly says that, Sattvam Rajas Tama iti guna, Sattvam Rajas Tama iti guna prakriti sampava nibantananti mahabaho dehe dehinam avyayam. So what the translation of this verse is, material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with the nature, mighty Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes. So the purport also clearly says this, the living entity is transcendental. So that's what in the translation also, so it is eternal, has nothing to do with this material nature, but still the soul become conditioned by the material world and acting under the spell of the three modes of material nature. Living entities have different kinds of bodies based on the karma. Depending on their karma, they are induced to act according to that nature. This is the cause of the varieties of happiness and distress. So that's what the duality is. So if soul directly see things without mind, then the soul will always be happy. But how soul can see without mind? When the soul gain knowledge about Supreme Lord, you get true intelligence. When you gain true intelligence, then it will control the mind. When the mind is completely in your control, then three modes of material nature cannot influence the mind. But how do you gain the knowledge about the Supreme Lord? Only through bhakti practices like sadhanas and 9 different devotional services. The chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra is one of the greatest sadhana. By doing this only, you can elevate your soul beyond three modes of material nature. So when soul goes beyond three modes of material nature, then the mind or three modes of mind won't affect that. That's why soul will get always happy. By nature, the soul is spiritual soul, and also it came from Mahavishnu body. So the soul is eternal and also it is real. This is what our Krishna conscious philosophy is. Vaishnava's philosophy. So in Krishna consciousness, anything connected to the spiritual is eternal or real. But any activity you do material, then it is temporary. That's why, how can you say that, any activity in the, you do it with the spiritual, then it is eternal. Satyasara Prabhu also often mentioned this, if you practice bhakti at the end of this life, if you accumulated 40% of the spiritual knowledge, then the next birth, you begin from where you left, which is 41%, not from zero. So this is how, the spiritual activities are eternally, accumulating the things. But if you gain material knowledge, even if you earn the PhD degree in this material life, in this birth, then everything will be vanished at the end of the life. And you have to start from one in the next life. So in Krishna consciousness, we believe the soul is permanent, eternal, and also it is spiritual and never loses its identity. Soul carries this identity forever, even if it goes to a spiritual world. So we have seen this, in a Krishna conscious way. But now we will see how impersonalists think about this. The impersonalists, they declare that not only the material form, but also material substance is unreal. And they confuse their own spiritual essence with that of the absolute whole. This is what the purport says. So what it says clearly, meaning they claim that material world and the substance of the material world, which includes jiva also, soul also, they claim that, that is unreal, that is asat. Also, everything is temporary here. So they simply say the soul is temporary display of this material world. They appear only under the three modes of material nature when you are in ignorance. So when you are in ignorance in this material world, under the three modes of material nature, you will have the soul. So the soul is, temporarily displaying here. But when you gain the knowledge and destroy your ignorance about Brahman, the Brahma Jyoti, that's what they claim that, then the soul won't be there. Then they also claim that, once you gain the knowledge, they become Brahman. They also become God. And they say that, they become Paramatma, whatever you call. Even they say that, Supreme, they first deny that, there is no Paramatma or Supreme Lord. But they are saying that, once they merge into that Brahma Jyoti, they have loses the soul, identity, and everything, and they will become a God. That's what their claim is. Also, they say that, attachment, manifest world and attachment and the manifest world are unreal creation of ignorance only. So this is hard to believe. How can they say that, the soul is, temporary and it will, will be displayed only in the three modes of material nature? I really cannot understand. And they are saying that, when you gain the knowledge about the Supreme, about the Brahman, even Brahman, you take that Brahmajyoti, you need to have a spiritual knowledge for that. If you have a spiritual knowledge and they say that, the soul is temporary and it is not having anything, only it is going to be there in the material mode, how can that soul gain the spiritual knowledge and go back beyond these three modes of material nature? I really, really cannot believe in that. So the reason for their confusion, all this confusion, from where they are getting it? They are getting it from the previous verse of this Personified Vedas. We are seeing the 10.87.26th verse, but in the 25th verse, it says that, the just one line, in the verse, Triguna Maya Puman Iti Pita. So that's from there, they are getting that all these things, like this material world is asat, and also the material substances, everything is asat. But in response to the Mayavadi's misinterpretations of the previous verse, Vedas clearly giving them the factual relationship between Sat and Asat. If you take that, the Shruti literature, we find this statement: Asado timino srajayate mana prajapatim asrujat prajapati praja asrujat tatva itam manasiyeva paramam pratistam yat itam kimsa. This is what in the Shruti literature it says, that the meaning of this is, the supreme mind was originally created from Asat. Here, note that, the supreme mind is nothing but, not the supreme Lord's mind. You should not confuse with that. The supreme mind is, which is coming from the Prathan, what Sridevi explained, in the unmanifested form. So that is mind is originally created from the Asat, but this mind created the Prajapati, and the Prajapati created all living beings. Thus, mind alone is the ultimate foundation of everything that exists in this world. That's what the Shruti literature says that. But here also the Mayavadis, the impersonalists, getting also they misread this statement also. How they understand? They say that, all manifest existence is based on the unreality of illusion, asat. That's what they claim. Apparently, so here, when they say asat, all manifest thing. So when the unmanifested form, the Prathan is asat, but when it comes to the manifested form, that is which is Prakriti, they claim that is also asat. And because if you just see the one clear difference between the Prathan and Prakriti. Prathan is, there is no form in it. All material elements are there, but there is no form in it. It is unmanifested form. I can totally understand that is, asat. But when it comes to the Prakriti stage, it is a manifested form. Every manifested form, every element has a form, like trees, humans, everything has a form. So you cannot say that, that is also asat, that is real. Maybe that is, like in the material world is temporary, but the substance of this material world is, not unreal. It is real only. So that's what we give them. Here, when we say that, the asat, when they are pointing out that, that the Prathan is asat, but in the Krishna consciousness, it says that actually refer to the original cause, the supreme Godhead, because he is transcendental to the material existence. He is asat for what? Transcendental to the material existence, he is asat, but he is originally sat. He exists ever. So the logic of Vedanta Sutra confirms these interpretations while denying the wrong interpretation of the impersonalists. They say that asat vyabadyasan nedi sena dharmandrena vakya seshat. what is this means? If one objects that the material world and its source cannot be of one substance because the world has been called unreal, but we Krishna conscious people reply for them, no, because the statement that Brahman is asat, here the Brahman, you need to clearly understand, the Brahman is, from the asat stage, when the mind comes, that is what they are saying, that Brahman. The Brahman is asat, makes sense in terms of his having qualities distinct from those of the creation. So what it clearly says, from the Prathan stage, it is asat, but when it comes to the Prakriti stage, so before the actual creation part, it is different from the actual creation part. So when it is in the initial stage, it is asat, but when it comes to the Prakriti stage, it is asat. That's what it clearly references. Even this is clearly confirmed this in the Taittiriya Upanishad. It declares asat va itam akra ashit. That means in the beginning of this creation, only asat was present. That's clear statement. Only in the beginning of, that's what the Prathan, the unmanifested form. So in the beginning of the creation, only asat was present, but not anymore. That's what it says. So in the opinion of, Srila Jiva Goswami also says that, the word adimana, manaha in the passage quoted above refers to the ruler of the aggregate mind of the universe, Lord Aniruddha. So this is beautiful things. When Narayana is creating this world and he is meditating on the different issue, if you can say that, different issue, he was meditating. Narayana was meditating. At that time, from the Narayana's forehead, a drop means yes, a drop of sweat. So if you are really focusing, intensely, then you will get sweat. So from the Narayana's forehead, there is a drop, sweat dropped on the floor, wherever, floor or anywhere. That forehead, that drop, fermentation of that drop is, created the golden egg of the universe appeared. And within that globe, four-headed Brahma took his birth. So if what we can say, the drop came from Narayana. That means the drop also, it's part of God only. That is what in this paragraph it says, when a particular object is manufactured, it appears as a transformation of its ingredient cause, as in the case of the jewelry made from gold. So you take anything, earrings or, necklace or chain or anything which is made from gold. So these chains and the earrings, everything has original quality of the gold. That's what we need to understand. So if anything comes from Supreme Lord, then, it is real. It is not asat. That's what we should do. That. Finally, I just want to show this one tabular column, where, in the shorter form, how Mayavadi and Vaishnava says that, Sat quality, the real, only Mayavadi says only Brahman is real. Brahman means effulgence of Brahma Jyoti, but Vaishnava says, anything connected to spiritual activity or Krishna is real. That's what it is. Example, soul or Jiva, anything. And then Asat, except Mayavadi says, except Brahman, everything else is unreal. But Vaishnava says that in a Krishna conscious philosophy says, the influence of Maya on material form is unreal. That's the only thing is unreal. Material world is real, but the influence of the Maya on the material form is unreal, temporary. Except Brahman, everything else is temporary. That's what Mayavadi claims. But Vaishnava claims anything not connected with the spiritual or Lord Krishna is temporary. Then the eternal, only Brahman is eternal. That's what Mayavadi claims. But we claim that, Jiva means soul, Iswara means Supreme Lord, Prakriti and time, all of them are, eternal. Thank you so much for attending thank you so much for giving us opportunity to explain this. If I make any mistakes, please forgive me. I'm sorry, I took 2 minutes extra. Sorry, very sorry for that.
Thank you, devotees, for giving us this wonderful opportunity. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Kannan Prabhu and Sridevi mataji. That was a very you explained this difficult verse. It's not easy to understand this creation and how the philosophy of devotees and the Mayavadi differ, and how the Mayavadis actually misinterpret the actual philosophy. So Mataji actually gave the background about the elements and how they are unmanifested in the form of pradhan, they exist, and give a nice example of the baby in the womb. And then the process of creation happens, and the time comes in, the modes of material nature comes, and then the jivas are activated, and it becomes manifested as prakriti or mahatatva. And then, Prabhu explained the differences, as we just saw, nicely summarized, between sat and asat, and eternal and temporary, and how the modes affect the mind, the conditioned mind. And when we, with the help of knowledge, the soul is rightly situated, then with the purified mind, it can, see properly what is happening. So thank you, Prabhu and Mataji. Wonderfully explained. Very, very difficult verse, actually, but wonderful job. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.